Hello, hello, hello. We are live with April's live arranging stream. Hope everybody's doing well. If you're watching live, welcome. If you're watching the replay, how's it going? Thanks for tuning in after the fact. Again, I hope everybody's having a good Friday. We're doing something a little different today. I thought, since usually for these arranging live streams, I'm starting from scratch, right? I'm showing you the very beginning of the arranging process. I thought for this time, why don't I do the opposite in a sense and go back through an arrangement that I just finished and kind of walk through a commentary on why I did, what I was thinking, and kind of just walking you through the arrangement and my decisions, rather than just seeing me kind of wrestle through the beginning. So we'll try this, and let me know either as you guys are watching or again leave a comment after the fact if you like this format. I can definitely work it into the rotation, but I think it should definitely be kind of insightful. So what I just finished in the video that I'm hopefully going to put out tonight is Game of Thrones, Ginny of Oldstones. So this is a song that actually just came out last week in last week's episode of Game of Thrones. I saw people tweeting about it because again, I don't actually watch the show. But I saw like a tweet about it, and then I saw it seemed like it was like striking a chord in people and gaining popularity. Hey Justin, what's up, man? Yeah, definitely let me know what you think of this format as we get going. But yeah, so I thought, hey, it'll be cool. I can be, kind of an early bird to get a solid arrangement out there of this new song, and it's a cool tune. So what we'll do is we'll listen to it for those of you who aren't familiar with it, and then we'll kind of just start kind of looking through my arrangement and kind of comparing it to the original, and yeah, it'll give you a different look at my process. So let's listen from the beginning. As always, feel free to let me know if I need to change anything in the mix, in the volume.
High in the halls of the kings who are gone, Jenny would dance with her ghosts, the ones she had lost and the ones she had found, and the ones who had loved her the most, the ones who'd been gone for so very long.
So yeah, let me know if the recording is too loud, if it's overpowering the guitar or my voice.
They spun around on the damp old stone, spun away our sorrow and pain, and she never wanted to leave, never wanted to leave, never wanted to leave, never wanted to leave. They danced through the day and into the night, through the snow that swept through the hole, from winter to summer and winter again, till the walls did crumble and fall. And she never wanted to leave, never wanted to leave,
Just gets more
never
epic.
wanted to leave. Jenny would dance with her ghost, the ones she had lost and the ones she had found, and the ones who had loved her the most.
All right. So there we have it. People have compared this. I've seen some comparisons between this song and Pippin's song from Lord of the Rings, The Steward of Gondor, both in just the general sound of the song and the mood and spirit of it, and I guess the context of it as it plays out in the story. And I can definitely hear it, especially at the very beginning. It definitely has that Pippin song kind of vibe, like a bard just singing some old folk tune of their country, some old story put into song. But yeah, so I really liked the melody, and it seemed like something that would just fit nicely on the guitar. So let's go ahead and dive right on in. I'm actually, if you can see, this is one of those rare occasions that I'm actually getting out the capo. I don't often have an excuse to use a capo, but for any of you who watch these streams on a regular basis, Amaury, what's up, man? Good to see you. For those of you who watch the stream on a regular basis, you will know that a lot of my time initially is spent finding a key. And so I did the same process with this one, trying to figure out a key that would work well on the guitar. And originally it's in C sharp minor, which isn't a terrible key for the guitar because it shares a key signature with E major. But that just means that your root note, your home base of your one chord in the key, C sharp, I like to have that home base be an open string lots of times if possible. So what I ended up coming up with was transposing it to A minor, which is just a real easy key. And because the melodic range for this one isn't too extreme, I was actually able to go ahead and just capo it up to 4. So I play it in A minor, but it's actually in the original key. So I don't usually stress out too much about trying to make an arrangement match the original key, but if it works out, it's great. Yeah, it's weird seeing me use a capo, right? Shoot. I mean, other than the Fortnite videos, I feel like I think I used one in Stranger Things. I used a capo in my Stranger Things arrangement, and I used one in Ancient Stones. Both of which are a long time ago. So, for anybody just tuning in, we're trying out a different format for the stream this time and actually giving commentary on an arrangement that I just finished rather than showing you guys the beginning process. I'm going through and just walking you through the choices that I made, why I did this, and again, feel free to ask any questions as I talk about something or we get to a certain section. And if you're watching the replay, you can leave it in a comment, and I'll get back to it after the fact for sure. So, the very beginning you can hear is very bare bones. So it's just her voice. This is Florence and the Machine, is the artist, for those of you who are familiar. So this is that vibe that's very much like Pippin's song from Lord of the Rings vibe. There's a little tricky landing on the exact rhythms for that because she's being a little bit free, but I wanted to make sure, obviously I was notating a specific rhythm, so I had to make a few judgment calls on some of her rhythms. So what I did, I just kept it super simple, just like she did. right? So that's the intro getting us through measure 8 here. I added a bass note just because I didn't want it to be too bare bones on the guitar. This is actually a classic place, as you guys might guess. I did experiment with harmonics for this part, but I also don't want to be too predictable all the time. You got to change things up. One thing that I did here that I want to, this is a cool trick that I definitely want you guys to take note of, and I use it a fair amount, and it works perfectly, especially for a really bare bones, simple melody like this. If you look at the notation, you can see I played the melody kind of, I fingered it kind of weirdly, because I very well could have just gone all in first position. But what I ended up doing is this campanella kind of technique where I split the melody up across several strings, and that creates a it's like almost synthesizes kind of reverb, like natural reverb in the guitar, because you have these tones that ring out together. And and at least in certain, it doesn't work everywhere, but I love that sound, that effect, especially, because you end up getting like that clash of those like major seconds. It's almost like a dissonance, but it's such a nice sound, almost bell-like. Right there too, I go from the C to the B, which is a half step, which is very dissonant, but if you stagger it, it's such an interesting kind of eerie sound. And so that's kind of the trick that I did to do something unique for this intro. Here I went to E and then F, leaving the E ringing out, and then G. And then for this little trill, I did like a little cross string trill. Instead of going F, E, F, E, D, right? A classic like hammer-on pull-off. I went almost like very Baroque sounding. So E string, B string, E string, B string. So I like the way that sounded as well. All right, moving on. When you get to the end of that section, you hear that high piano tone. Like that's the first like instrumental tone that comes in. So I simulated that with harmonics, naturally. Right? Now the tricky part about playing with a capo is that it shifts everywhere your harmonics normally are. So the 7th fret is now the 11th fret. So that's a little confusing for me, not playing with a capo normally. All right, so then moving forward, when you listen, I love this. So this technique, I guess it's like a compositional technique where you set the listener up for no harmonic context, or maybe you hold a chord for a long time, like one chord. So in this case, there's no harmonic context, right? The whole beginning is just melody. No chords or anything underneath. And so I feel like it's so cool, it's so powerful when you have something like that, to when you hear that first chord change and that first introduction of harmony, it makes it that much more powerful. So if when you listen, ones who'd been gone for so very long, right, those chords that come in, to me, it's such a beautiful moment. Obviously we have our one chord that starts right here, so technically that's our first harmony, but we still kind of heard that's implied in the melody, but really this, that little soft chord change right there is so beautiful. So what happens in that whole section is essentially the same melody repeated now with some harmony as well. So that's what I did in my arrangement. That campanella sounds so nice and pleasant. Thanks, Amaury. Yeah, I'm a sucker for that effect, for sure. So now I play through the same melody, but just with some simple, right? Now with this note, you see I've got this little grace note slide. That's at measure 12 here. One thing, piece of advice I always give about arranging something that's originally for voice is that you have to be ready to use more things like grace notes and sliding into notes or bending into notes or little quick hammer-ons and pull-offs to simulate kind of the flourishes that the human voice has. Lots of times how they'll like kind of drop off of a note really subtly or kind of like scoop up into the note rather than just right? Lots of times it'll be like right? You know, like things like that. And so you want to recreate that as much as possible. And so like this was a case where I very well could have just gone and that's more like guitaristic, right? I mean, it's just, it doesn't sound bad, but just little things like that, adding that little scoop. Let's see where it is.
One was so very long, she couldn't remember their
Name. Right? Name. So again, it seems like it's something small, but you want to listen out for those things because it really, it's one of those things where it's like, if it wasn't there, you would miss it a little bit. You don't capture the character of the vocal line as much if you don't incorporate little things like that. Like in my Sunflower arrangement, I had lots of little things like that. That bass and the slide add some deep to the feeling. Yeah, it's a cool little effect. One of the annoying things about arranging stuff that's for like voice is that you end up having more tiny little rhythmic variations in a repeated melody or theme than instrumental pieces because of the lyrics, right? The words that they're saying might make one time you go, you know, turn me around, you know, and then the other times spin me around. Like based on the words, the inflection and the rhythm changes, which makes it a real pain to memorize because you have all these little changes. But it is a good exercise in understanding and notating rhythm, for sure. Like that's an example there. That's another example here in measure 15. Simple, but it makes the melody sound more voice-like, right? This quick grace note pull off from D to C. Also very folk, Celtic kind of sound. Alright, so this is kind of like the B section that comes here. The next melody, the lyric is never.
She never wanted to leave. Never wanted to leave. Never
soft piano, like arpeggios in the background.
Never wanted to leave.
Okay, so for that whole section, I started introducing just some soft, trying to recreate that arpeggio as much as possible. still just really simple. Right? And full transparency, I've seen that even like some people like talking in Discord and other people that I've coached in arranging, lots of times there's this inner conflict, inner struggle with not being okay with something being simple. And again, in the sake of transparency, I felt that a little bit too for this whole beginning section. I was like, man, surely I can do more with this. It's just too simple. But you really have to remind yourself, never make something complex for the sake of complexity, right? Complexity is just a means to an end, right? If it becomes more complex because it is truer to the original, or it's to make it more powerful in some way, or you just don't want, the end goal is not complexity, right? So it can be simple and it can be beautiful, and in this case it is a simple tune, right? So there's no point in trying to go out of my way and make it really flashy or complicated when it doesn't need to be, right? It can be simple and it can be beautiful. Richard, good to see you, man. Welcome. Such a beautiful song, nice dynamics, totally has a similar vibe to Pippin's song. It'd be cool to hear an arrangement of that too sometime. Yeah, Richard, I did a partial arrangement. I don't know, it would be hard to do like a full arrangement of that, I feel like. Because it is shorter, but I did go back and watch my Harry Potter versus Lord of the Rings video, and I did like a short little arrangement of Pippin's song in that. And yeah, I don't know if you were here earlier, but I was actually talking just exactly about that this song really does have that same that exact same vibe that Pippin song. So yeah, definitely good catch. Sometimes simple is beautiful, fits the tone the song had in the show. Yeah, Justin, definitely. There's nothing wrong with simple. So moving on, now we have our next big thematic section. So that whole never wanted to leave part, that B section, is going to come back later. But now we have this whole middle build-up section. So the first thing I want you guys to notice is this piano repeated motif in the background here.
They dance through the day and into the night, through the snow that...
So yeah, you hear that continues over and over and over, even after the melody comes in. Right? Hit a wrong note there. So I knew for this part I needed to do my absolute best to keep that little figure going, because whenever you are arranging is always a game of compromises, right? You can never, or rarely can you fit everything on the guitar that's happening in the original source material, whether it's just the sheer number of notes or just the the limitations of the guitar and your reach and things like that. But you always want to listen for what is like the really characteristic part of every theme, every musical moment. And even though it's kind of faint in the background, I felt like that little repeated figure was important. It's something that our ear kind of gravitates toward. And so I knew that I wanted to incorporate that as much as possible, but I also knew with how much the melody was moving on top and in this limited range, my melody is already around that same register that figure is happening, they kind of intersect. So I knew it would have to be a little bit of a trade-off, but one of the techniques that I use in arranging is that whether it's an arpeggio pattern or something like that, that our ear as the listener is conditioned to hearing, right? So like in this case, our ears, we hear this pattern. What you can do is hint at it or play certain notes on certain beats that you can in between melody notes, get as much of that pattern in there as possible, even if you have to miss some of the beats. And it almost tricks the ear into feeling like that pattern is continuing. If you hear that little thing sometimes, even though you don't hear the whole, but just hearing that every once in a while, for example, or just keeping it as consistent as you can, is a little trick where we can work around the limitations of the guitar. Justin said, maybe cover Billy Boyd, The Last Goodbye. I've thought about that recently, actually. I rediscovered that song recently, and it really, it's just such a beautiful, it just encompasses the whole Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit saga so beautifully. It it makes you so nostalgic for that whole story. I would definitely, I'd sooner do that than trying to do, even though I love Pippin's song, Billy, the Last Goodbye would be easier to translate into a full arrangement. Harry Morgan's arranging book talks about that concept. Implied harmony is super useful. Man, I'm not even familiar with that book. I'm going to have to look that up. I haven't read any books specifically on arranging, which I feel like I actually probably should, especially if I'm going to be doing more teaching of arranging. It'd be interesting to see how other people taught it. I guess I always thought that there's not too much material out there specifically for arranging. But yeah, Eric, if you have a chance, maybe if you could link that to me on Discord or something. Oh, it's more geared toward jazz songs. Yeah, see, I feel like there's more material out there for like jazz arranging. But yeah, I mean, there's still plenty that you can learn from that for arranging, no matter the style. I mean, if you're solid enough on theory and stuff to be able to arrange for jazz, I mean, you're set for anything. All right. So yeah, this whole section was just a juggling match of like, how do I keep the melody going while trying to keep this accompaniment going as well as I can. This part was tricky, right? You look at measure 30. Oh, I have it muted. The rhythm is very syncopated. 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and. Or F natural. While keeping a steady, I was actually keeping that. That's a place where I was able to keep that pattern going underneath. That part, that's where I've spent the most time practicing for this arrangement, actually. But I'm so glad that it worked out there, and I feel like that's a really cool measure. And that's a perfect example of a scenario too where, I think a lot of us who fell in love with the classical guitar have experienced those moments where we're like, man, that sounds like at least two guitars. I know for me that was one of the things, listening to some old recordings when I was first getting into classical guitar, that made me really just so intrigued by it. I was like, man, you can do that on one guitar. And I feel like spots like that are where, if you're not watching, even though it's not super complicated, but you can hear these two very distinct things going on, right? That, and then the melody. Now the next measure, I had to get really creative as well. You guys know, if you've watched the harmonics video, instructional video I put out, one of the uses for harmonics is not just, it's more of a practical use, right? Not just to get that bell-like tone, but to play notes that are out of reach of where you are currently. Billy Boyd, The Last Goodbye would be awesome. Love these types of medieval folk sounding tunes. Yeah, I'm definitely a sucker for them. Thank you, Eric. I really appreciate that, man. Thank you. Yeah, 'cause some other people might be interested in seeing that as well. But yeah, if we look at measure 31, the beginning of this next page, that arpeggio pattern on that part ends up going, what is it? Yeah, it goes like this, boom, boom, ba da 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 da, instead of just that same repeated pattern. And so my melody note needed to go to this D, but I needed to play that open B to keep that arpeggio going. So I played the 12th fret harmonic, which again, because the capo shifted over, played it with my right hand so I can keep things moving here. And then with using that same kind of campanella technique, I was able to keep that accompaniment going, B, C, D. Right? Works really well. Now here's again an interesting insight that you guys get to see in these live streams. I'll tell you the things I actually don't like about an arrangement. Sometimes there are things where I'm like, I did the best I could with it there, but I wish it could be better. There's always some spots like that. And this is one of those spots going from 34 to 35. You have this really powerful descending bass line. Boom. It's supposed to go boom, boom, boom to that low D. And obviously in this key, in this tuning, I couldn't get there. So I had to use the technique of octave leaping, right? So I had to leap and play, which is so much weaker. And it's always a valid option. That's something that, you know, I feel like if somebody's music theory is really weak, they might not necessarily think to do that. And so they get here and they're really stuck because they know they have to go down and they have nowhere to go down. So knowing the note, obviously, that you have to play and knowing that you can skip an octave, it happens a lot of times. I saw it back when I used to study the Bach lute suites, you know, various arrangements of those, you know, some of those arrangers. I think Frank Kuntz, was the one that did the editions I was working on. You would see stuff like that. You would see those octave leaps just because, you know, it is what it is. Sometimes you can only, it's like I said, arranging is a game of compromises. But yeah, I will say that was a really weak moment to me. I really wanted, boom, you know, I wanted that to build to something. It's almost like it's building and then you're like, it's like you let down. It's like anticlimactic. But it's not a huge deal. At the end of the day, you know, you have to remember that nobody's really going to, you know, they don't really hear the alternative. They're not going to be bent out of shape about that. And you can still, based on your interpretation and how you play it, you can still add some of that drama in there. But I tried. I was like, well, maybe I can go back and do the whole thing in drop D. for that one moment. I really did. I went back just for that one moment. I was like, can I refinger everything to where it'll work in drop D so I can have this moment? And it made that whole previous section too complicated to work. So just for that one moment, it wasn't worth it. So again, game of compromises. Right? You can hear how it's a little weaker, but you need a harp guitar to get those lower notes. That's right. Yeah, Justin's never going to have that problem. One of the limits of the guitar, but we do what we can. This piece sounds great on guitar. Yeah, you just got to work within the framework that the instrument allows. But thanks. Yeah, I'm glad you like the way it sounds on guitar. It's definitely one of those that, that, like you were saying, medieval kind of folk sound always sounds really cool on guitar. Once we get here, it starts taking that same. So now, if you notice, we're back to that B section, that never wanted to leave, never wanted to leave. That melody, and it's with that added accompaniment. A little bit more arpeggios. And then it starts kind of reharmonizing. So it goes to a G chord instead of it started out on a D minor. Never wanted to leave. Right? So now it's G chord. Never wanted to leave. And an F chord instead of a D minor. Now again, full disclaimer, this slur has been kicking my butt. Full disclosure. That's what I meant to say. This is like, if you want to exercise in finger independence, we've got a bar chord, a bar on our first fret. Then I put my third finger on this G, the third fret, as this bass note goes up. And then you have to do a quick trill hammer-on pull-off with your fourth finger. And so that split between our third and fourth finger like that, that's already a stretch for those fingers. It requires some finger independence. And then to do a quick hammer-on pull-off on top of that is not fun. Although by the time I get there... Okay, so I don't bar anymore. Actually, keeping the bar makes it easier. A little bit. Sometimes I don't get it quite clear. Yeah, the bar definitely actually, for whatever reason, makes it easier. But that's a tricky spot. All right. So I want to talk about this measure, 48. Justin says, this sounds so good, you got to get the video up so I can share with all my friends. Yeah, man, thank you. Oh gosh. I'm supposed to post it, tonight for you guys and tomorrow for the rest of the world, but I just recorded it earlier today. And as you can tell by me playing it right now, that was already kind of rushed. So I haven't even finished editing that recording. and then it's not really fully memorized. It's barely memorized. It's not memorized at all. And I got to try to memorize it and film it tonight. And I was telling you, Justin, about this. I've been having some crazy like stomach pain that's really bad. It like gets worse every time I eat or drink. So something's really wrong. So I'm going to the doctor for that next week, or a specialist. So that's been slowing me down. So it'll be a miracle if I get this out tonight, but I really want to. So let's hope. Let's see. So here, measure 48 I want to talk about. It's nice little...
Swept through the wall. Never wanted to, never wanted to leave, never wanted to leave.
Little different flourish there. Hey, Wimpy, what's up, man? Good to see you. Yeah, no rest for the wicked. Yeah, we'll see, Justin. I mean, I really need to get it out there. I wanted, again, part of the reasons for doing this is I wanted to be one of the early... I mean, there are some crazy people who put arrangements out of this on YouTube, like the day after it was released. But, I mean, when you rush it that much, it can only be so good. You know, I always want to make sure the quality's there before worrying about being like the absolute first person to have it up. I appreciate you guys for understanding though. You guys you're awesome. I mean, I'm sure you know by now I delay things all the time, but I hate it. Every time I have to do it, I hate it. Just like yet again, the instructional stuff has taken a back seat as I've been doing these other projects with the collaboration with Eddie, and between that and being sick and other stuff going on, it's just, I hate pushing stuff back. But one of these days, BTG equals quality. Quality takes time, my man. It does take time. The quality is something I'm not willing to compromise on. So yeah, I did that little vocal, ascending vocal line. I kind of, in retrospect, maybe I would try a little bit more to figure that out on the B string to get a little bit more, like the B string has a lot more of a sweeter tone to it. But I think I like the way that sounds when you go up to that high note, muting everything else and having that one note shine out above everything. And I just put some harmonics in there to have that kind of that pattern that we've become so familiar with now to kind of almost just fade away as an echo. And this part, I love this part, guys. This is a technique that I love so much because it capitalizes on one of the most beautiful tonalities of the guitar. And if you guys aren't using this periodically in your own arrangements, you're missing out. So we'll talk about that in a second. Richard said it's very interesting seeing arranging techniques that capture the build-in dynamics and capturing all the instruments being added in an arrangement. Really curious what'll be done for that. Yeah, usually lots of times, you know, because obviously you can only do so much on guitar. Some of that is left to your own performance. So we are responsible to build that dynamic in how we play. So leaving room to build, grow louder and play with more intensity. As far as arranging, you know, changing pitch levels, so like going up an octave, oftentimes will help add that, even if that doesn't happen specifically in the original. Doing that on your own helps add that intensity when otherwise the original is just adding more instruments and stuff like that. Or, doubling up on the rhythm, right? So if you've been arpeggiating at the 8th note or something, like trying to come up with some like triplet or 16th note rhythm that adds to that intensity and keeps that movement going even more intense. Weight's always worth it for you. Thank you, Amaury. Too kind, my friend. All right, so the technique that I love, think about it. If you guys can think of any other arrangement that I've done this on off the top of your heads, I'll be very impressed. But there's definitely quite a few. Taking the melody down an octave and playing the harmony up above the melody. I just love this because one, it's like a nice variation. It's a perfect way to kind of do like a soft break, a soft like interlude, or a soft like outro, like in this case, or even an intro. Changing up the mood just by changing the pitch level. And it then gets you into that very sweet register of the guitar that can be very like cello-like. I love that tone. So what I do is I take that same melody and then harmony up above. Right? It's just so good. So good. And of course, adding some of those grace notes for more vocal quality to it. Love it. My strings are super dead on this guitar, so some of those notes sound a little weak, but yeah, you get the idea. Remember Me from Coco. Yeah, yep, I did it in that one. Yeah, good memory. That strikes the heartstrings. Yeah, for sure. So good. Thank you, Justin. I do that in the last phrase of one of the sections in my latest original. I'm not quite sure I have the effect down, though. Awesome, Eric. Yeah, it's all about kind of staggering the harmony. You can kind of see, like, I space it out a little bit. I don't worry about, playing the harmony on too many of the beats. It's kind of just like one iteration of each chord. Sometimes you play the chord offset from the melody, kind of on the ands or the offbeats. There's lots of stuff you can do with it, but it really boils down to just pouring your heart and soul into that melody and that low register of the guitar, really making that sing. That's what makes or breaks the technique, really. So yeah, there we go. That's kind of an exclusive walkthrough of the latest arrangement. So just honest feedback, guys. I always ask for honest feedback from you guys quite a bit on just ideas for things, and so don't feel like you have to. I always want just transparent, honest feedback from you guys, because it doesn't do me any favors. Just because, if you guys don't want to like hurt my feelings or something like that, it's very nice and everything, but it doesn't really help any of us if the feedback isn't honest. So just honestly, just let me know. Do you like this format? So this was, again, if you jumped in late and wondering what in the world's going on, I tried a different format this live stream. Instead of just starting a brand new arrangement, I went back and kind of analyzed and broke down my thought process for an arrangement that I just finished, and kind of walked you guys through some of the techniques that I used and some of the choices that I made. So it's kind of a reverse engineering, kind of looking back instead of just the bare bones beginning of the process. So if you guys like this format, I'll definitely work it into the rotation. So that way we'll mix it up a little bit. You can kind of see something at the very beginning phase, which is cool, but it's a lot of times, as you guys know, it's a struggle just kind of getting started. So let's see. I really like this approach of seeing the final product and walking through the choices you made. Awesome. I like it a lot. I really enjoyed seeing that arrangement from this point of view. Okay, cool. My recommendation would be to sometimes see something from the beginning, then maybe in the midway process where you start enhancing the arrangement, then the final phase. Yeah, I've always wanted to show the different phases of the process. It's hard to time that. I just haven't gotten the timing for that right, because every time one of these arranging streams come around, I don't have any arrangements that are kind of like in that middle phase, kind of waiting, ready to go. So I would just have to like intentionally start one that I don't need to post yet, and kind of sit on it for a little bit, wait till the live arranging stream to show you that midway process. But I feel you, Richard. I definitely want to show more of that spectrum, the overall arc and process. And one thing that I might do too, that's once I really finally get into a rhythm of the instructional stuff, which it breaks my heart every time I delay those videos again. So I'm sorry for that, guys. I promise I will get into a rhythm of that sooner rather than later. But that's one thing that I think once I'm able to dedicate some more time to that, I think that's one of the things I want to focus on too, is like maybe taking one arrangement and showing the full process. Anyway. But yeah, maybe save a file midway through and then finish it and pull it up for okay. Eric's saying like show the, and then I'm trying to think how that would work, because so the way that I arrange is I literally, if it's notated, it's pretty much set in stone. So it's not like I don't like notate everything kind of partially, like get everything kind of bare bones and then like fill it out as I go. So I don't know if that might not work, unless you mean like I could start it and get it halfway through and then finish it and post it, but then like go back and like kind of fake arrange it from the middle section, I guess. I don't know. I'll have to think about that, but I like where you're going with that. First stream the beginning of the arrangement like you usually do, and then do another like this so we can see the end result. Yeah. That would definitely be an easier solution. We would just miss that middle portion, but at least that way you get both ends. So cool. Well, thank you for the feedback, guys. Anybody watching the replay as well, please chime in. Let me know what you think. I think this was fun, and I think it's beneficial too, because I can walk you through some of my thought processes on things that I might not be able to get to in the earlier stages of arranging. And I just have a better concrete, like, obviously it's a finished product. And so I feel like it's an easier medium to teach through. And just to, even if you're not interested in learning how to arrange, it's an easier way for me to kind of, rather than trying to walk through real time as I'm thinking of things, to go back and say like, here's what I did and why. It's just not as messy, I guess. Anyway, so if you guys like it, we'll do a mix, we'll do some of the real actual live arranging, and then we'll do some going back and looking at stuff. Cool. All right, well, that puts us at time. My stomach is killing me. So I'm going to jump off here, maybe rest for a little bit, and then hopefully get this video out tonight somehow. That's up to you to use your beautiful magic. Quick comment on the capo. Thank you, by the way, Amari. That's good feedback, though. I appreciate that. Quick comment on the capo. No shame in using a capo. David Russell used a capo a lot in his Celtic classical guitar arrangement. It's in his album Message of the Sea. Yeah. Oh, man, I love that album. That's a fantastic album. I played a couple of those pieces. Yeah, I mean, and lots of Renaissance pieces are instructed to use a capo for, I guess, to match the tonality or like the range of the lute more. There's definitely no, I mean, I personally don't feel any shame in using a capo. It's more so just the practicality of it. Lots of time, I don't have, most of the time I find myself just needing or wanting the whole range of the guitar at my disposal. So in most cases for me, it's just I'm not able. But I have like 3 of these beautiful Thalia capos. If you're not familiar with the brand, that's I'll type it in the chat. You should look them up. I mean, they're pricey, but they're gorgeous. So hopefully, I don't know if it'll show up. So this like got this beautiful red wood grain and this black chrome, and you can even see, it's kind of hard to see, but they engraved my logo in the wood. It's really fine, but if you know my logo, you can kind of see, you can't really see the strings on the camera, but there's those 6 strings that go through my logo. And they're just beautiful capos. I have another one there that's like more of a natural wood finish, brown. And then I have one over there that's like blue mother of pearl. Aaron, on for those of you who know him through Discord, he got one too recently that's gorgeous. But their niche is kind of like, if you have a high-end beautiful guitar, why slap some ugly, springy looking contraption on it, some ugly basic capo on it. It's basically like, why not accessorize your beautiful guitar? And so you have to pay a premium for it, but they are gorgeous. They're bulky. It takes a little getting used to for that reason, but I love them. I just think they're visually striking. So, not sponsored, by the way. They do not pay me to say that. They did send me these. They did send me these for free. But I'm in no way, that's my unbiased opinion of them. They haven't paid me a dime. I did get to meet them out at the NAMM show last year, which, by the way, Wimpy, if you're still in here, man, let's if you're down, I think I'm gonna go again this year or this next January to NAMM. I'm thinking maybe like every other year. I don't know. I might at one point start going every year. It's a lot to motivate myself to travel like that. But it was so fun hanging out with you, man, and I would love to do that again. So anyway, that also, anybody else who would be interested in going to the NAMM show, it'd be awesome to meet you. So it's in January sometime out in California, Anaheim. All right, let's go ahead and wrap up. Thank you guys for everything. As always, thank you so much for the support. Month after month, I would not be able to do this or do these streams or make this music if it wasn't for you guys. Patreon is still a huge part of why I'm able to do what I do, and it's kind of, even though it's had a kind of gradual decline, it started to stabilize a little bit more now, and so it's kind of out of all my revenue streams, it's kind of the most stable, and so that's really comforting for me, and it in this world of any type of entrepreneurship, if you work for yourself, generally your income's going to fluctuate, and especially in this online world, social media and ad revenue and stuff like that, things fluctuate. So it's really comforting in this world to have some like stability and that constant knowing that month after month this is going to come in, and you guys provide that in spades. So as always, thank you so much for that. I will never ever take that for granted. I hope you all have an awesome weekend. This is an exciting weekend for those of you who are into Game of Thrones. Seems like it's gearing up for a crazy episode. Avengers Endgame, I'm really excited about. I've been like hiding from the internet to avoid spoilers for that. So good luck to everybody else out there who's avoiding spoilers like myself. I'm not going to be able to go till Sunday, so I got to hang in there a little bit longer. But have a good weekend, guys. And I will see you over in Discord. All right? Much love. Peace.